When things go wrong as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must but do not ever quit. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And my name is Omar Dunlap, and I'm glad that you could be with us today, and I'm glad that you could join us today. The topic of our show, inshallah ta'ala, is non-Muslims living in a Muslim country. What do they see? You know, what are their perceptions? What are they going through? This sort of topic. And we have with us, as always, Brother Idris Tawfiq here with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
And we will let him now give us just 10 minutes of his reflections and things that he wants to say to us and speak to our hearts, inshallah. Brother Idris.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashraf al-mursaleen Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most compassionate, all praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon His final messenger Muhammad, and may the peace and the blessings and the mercy of Allah be upon all of you who are watching this program. You honor us by joining us today. And in this program, Let's Talk, we're going to talk about Islam and life. We said in the promotion trailer for the show that whether you're 8 or you're 18 or you're 80, this show is for you, because Islam touches all of our lives. And inshallah, by talking to one another, we learn more about ourselves, we learn more about other people, we learn more about Islam. So inshallah, I want to begin with a little story. Today we're talking about how people living in the land of Islam who are not Muslim have different impressions of what Islam is like. And I want to share with you this story. I came to Islam, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I came to Islam by visiting a Muslim country. Allah Almighty had planned from all time that I would become Muslim by coming on holiday to Egypt. Now in the Holy Quran, Allah Almighty says to us that no soul knows what comfort is kept hidden for them as a reward for their deeds. Beautiful words. No soul knows what comfort is kept hidden for them as a reward for their deeds. And I'd like you to think, brothers and sisters, today about this little thought. On Judgment Day, on that final day when we will all appear naked before Allah Almighty to give an account for how we've led our lives, and to stand up in honesty before Allah and before all people, when we'll be ashamed. We stand naked and ashamed for all the bad that we've done, and our deeds will be read out, and our good deeds will be read out, and our bad deeds will be read out. And I want to give you the example of a little boy here in Egypt who on Judgment Day will have the shock of his life. Now I came on holiday to Egypt. I just left the priesthood. I don't know if you know, I used to be a Roman Catholic priest. And I came to Egypt for a break. I knew nothing about Egypt. I read in the newspapers that Egypt had sand and camels and the pyramids, of course. But I knew nothing about Egypt except, one other thing. It had Muslims. Now, I didn't know anything about Muslims. I'd never met a Muslim. But I thought, well, I haven't got any money. I'll have to take the risk because it's the cheapest holiday I can find. So I came on holiday, and that week changed my life. Because for the first time in my life, I met Muslims. Now, this is important for our program today. We're talking about how non-Muslims are affected when visiting the land of Islam, when visiting Muslim countries. One day I was walking from my hotel in central Cairo, and I passed in the street a little boy, and the little boy was cleaning shoes. That was his job. He was obviously very poor because he had little plastic flip-flops on his feet and a very shabby galabeya. We won't say it was dirty because he was Muslim. It wasn't dirty, but it was shabby and old. And the boy was thin. But he saw me and he saw my white skin. And his face burst into a big smile and he said, Assalamu alaikum. That was my introduction to Islam. A little boy in the street greeting me with Assalamu alaikum. And then for the rest of the week, I didn't know how to reply when he first said it. For the rest of the week, I walked past him each day from my hotel to where I was going in Cairo. And I learnt a little bit of colloquial Egyptian Arabic, and I learnt to say to him, Zayak ya Habibi, how are you? And you know what his response was? He responded to me, Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Now, all my life, I'd worked with people of faith. And I'd been talking to good, honest people about matters of faith. But this little boy, he, as we say in English, he knocked the socks off me with his reply. Because he really meant what he was saying. And every day for the rest of that week, I would walk past the little lad. And he would greet me. And we'd talk. And as a result of that boy, I went home, back to London at the end of the holiday. I didn't know too much about Islam. But I knew that Muslims were not what the newspapers were telling me. And to cut a very long story short, at the end of the year, I embraced Islam. It was Allah Almighty's plan from the beginning of time that meeting that little boy would bring me to Islam. Now, the point of me telling you this, brothers and sisters, is that on Judgment Day, that little boy will appear before Allah Almighty, and his bad deeds will be read out. And his good deeds will be read out. And when it's come to the end of the good deeds, or so he thinks, oh, well, that's it, that's all my good deeds, only then will it start. He'll get the shock of his life, because when he's finished with what he thinks are his good deeds, he'll then hear all the shahadas that have been declared because of him. All of the books that have been written, the television programs, the newspaper articles, all the lectures in universities and mosques throughout the world. And all because he greeted someone in the land of Islam with Assalamu alaikum. And he said the words Alhamdulillah. In the Holy Quran we read, no soul knows what comfort is kept hidden for them as a reward for their deeds. Now, brothers and sisters, talking today about non-Muslims visiting Muslim lands, we're asking ourselves, how do those people respond to us? What do they think when they see Islam and Muslims? And I would suggest to you, think very carefully. Because often we take things in life for granted, and we treat people in a way without too much thought and too much care. That little boy teaches me that everything we do in life is a way of bringing people to Islam. He will get the shock of his life on that final day, that great and final day, as we all will. So today in our program, we're going to ask, what do non-Muslims think? I had no idea about Islam, none at all. And because of the good example and the kind words and the cheerfulness of a little Muslim boy, Allah Almighty brought me to Himself. Now we're going to ask ourselves, is that everyone's experience? And we'll do that after the break. We're going to take a short break now. So inshallah, you'll join us after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Earth, the human heart, greed, exploitation, hatred, all diseases of the heart. For the cure, join Huda TV every Sunday at 20 GMT for Moments for the Heart.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to our show, Let's Talk. Today we're discussing the topic of non-Muslims living in a Muslim country. What do they see? What sort of impression do we give them? And I hope you're able to catch the first part of our show, because our brother Idris Tawfiq, who's with us in the studio today and will be with us every day, of course, gave a very nice talk about his experience, his first experiences in a Muslim country. Brother Idris, welcome back. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
And we would like also to welcome our audience, inshallah. We have an audience with us today that's listening to us and will be asking us questions, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. What we're going to do now is we've actually had some people, just random questions that we wanted to ask random people. And so we asked them to come in and get their impressions of the topic that we're discussing today. So we will look at some of their answers to the question, basically, is there a such thing as a Muslim country? This is the question that we asked them, and we will look at their answers now, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. In this episode of Let's Talk, we're talking about what foreigners living in majority Muslim countries think about Islam. So my question to you, Dr. Atif, is, do you as an ordinary Muslim think there is such a thing as a Muslim country existing in this world today?
Of course there are existing Muslims, existing country Muslims, Muslim countries. Of course they are.
Okay, well, let me explain a bit more what I mean. I don't just mean countries where the majority of people are Muslim. I mean countries that are living Islam.
Well, I mean, Muslims are not controlled by countries. You can say like Muslim country. It's a Muslim man, Muslim behavior, Muslim, as a person. But, I mean, if you are a good Muslim and you are living in a Western country, it doesn't mean that this country living Islam. I mean, I'm talking about a Muslim as a Muslim, not a country. But good Muslims are everywhere, in their countries and in foreign countries. I cannot say like Muslim countries. I don't like even Muslim countries, this expression. Muslims are Muslims everywhere, whether they are in their countries or in other countries.
I think it's Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia? Why do you say that?
Because of the culture and the traditions.
Okay. And what about countries that they have like 90% Muslim? Would you call them Muslim countries?
Like Egypt.
Any country.
But we don't have the same culture as Saudi Arabia, and the traditions, that's not really Islam.
Yeah, there is.
There is?
Yeah. I don't know actual names, but there are countries like Serbia, for example. They follow the right track on Islam.
Well, Muslim countries are already exist, but we can't say that there is a Muslim country or there is not a Muslim country, because Muslims are all over the world. I mean, there is no a special Muslim countries, and we can't say this is a Muslim country because all of people are Muslims. No, I think what your question is how to say there is Islam in this country, and this comes from us, from our behavior all over the world.
See, what I'm asking really is there anything different about a Muslim country that people in the world would look and say, look, there is Islam? Do you think that exists anywhere?
Of course, I think that Islam exists and Muslim countries exist.
Well, that was very interesting and very enlightening. And I would like to get Brother Idris's comments on what he just saw. What were the answers? What do you think about what they were saying?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Well, you see, to be honest, they were all saying the same thing. They were all saying that people visiting the land of Islam, visiting Muslim countries, they're not really impressed. Because they said, and these are just Muslims talking to us, they were saying these people see either that we're living in backwardness, or that we're seeing Muslims not living the way they should be living. In other words, what we're hearing from just ordinary Muslims that we met in the street is that Muslims aren't really giving the best impression about Islam. And so today, that's what we're asking ourselves. You know, if I can share something with you, when I was in Detroit, not too long ago, I had a meeting with the Greek Orthodox Bishop of Detroit, Metropolitan Nicholas of Detroit, and as I do whenever I travel, I like to meet religious leaders. And I said to him, "Sir, you honour us with this meeting. You honour all Muslims, and I extend a hand of friendship on behalf of all Muslims." And I said to him, "You know, Muslims respect other religions," he said, "Oh." So I said, "Why do you say that?" He said, "Well, that isn't my experience." And I said, "Oh, well, sir, please tell me what your experience is." And he spoke about his own experience of being with Muslims. And it taught me, brother, that, you know, we must be very aware of what other people think of us. We can be saying things, but other people aren't hearing what we want them to hear.
Right.
They're hearing something altogether different. So, you know, when people visit the land of Islam, when they visit Arab and Muslim countries, what image are we actually giving to them?
Well, that's a very important question. You know, I have one small comment that I just want to throw out there. That we're seeing this very common in Muslim culture, whether it's in the West or in a Muslim country, that we seem to have some sort of feeling like we've lost something and we have to gain it back or show some sort of face. And one of the things that we're doing is we're sort of like, you know, we'll read the Bible and find these choice quotes, or maybe we'll study the works of Ahmed Deedat. Not that we have anything against Ahmed Deedat. He did some very good things in the field of da'wah, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless him. But he was operating in a certain time, in a certain reality. The South African Muslims felt very kind of beaten around, you know, and so he was operating off of that reality. Now, what we have now is Muslims now are tending to look at these sort of works, and they will just knock the Christians around, you know, have sometimes not exactly very nice debates with them. You know, it can be very rude sometimes to make themselves feel better, you know, is what I feel. I mean, this is my personal opinion, that to make ourselves feel better for the things that we feel, we're sort of like very condescending in the way that we talk to people of other religions, not just Christians. Do you have any comments on that?
Whereas, as a nation of mercy,
right,
as a people of rahmah, people of rahim, we should be the most gentle and the most courteous and the most merciful people on earth as Muslims. Allah Almighty has called us from all people on this earth to be Muslim. And He's called us to be a light to all the nations. And our Lord is Rabbil Alameen. He's not just the Lord of Muslims, He's the Lord of all people.
That's right.
Anyway, brother, we have sitting over here, what a handsome group. And they're not here just to look nice, but they're here to give us some comments. So maybe some of the audience might have a reflection or a thought or a question about this idea of what non-Muslims think about us. So does someone here have a question for us to start with?
A question about what you saw, the interview? Yes, brother, go ahead.
Okay. The Prophet Muhammad said that he was sent only to finish and achieve the high moral and nobility characters. What are the morals that the doctor that attracted the doctor in the Egyptian Muslims?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. That's a very good point, brother. He's saying, it's Ahmed, sah? Yes. Ahmed is saying that as Muslims we should be a nation of the highest morals, of the best behavior. I'll give an example of something from my own life in answer to what you're saying. I used some time ago to teach in a school, and all the people in the school, apart from me, they were all foreigners. They were all from the West, because it was an international school, as they say, for foreign children. And Ramadan was approaching, and I went into the staff room one day, and I overheard one member of staff saying to another one, "Oh no," she said, "Ramadan is coming again." And I thought to myself, I didn't say anything, but I thought, how very sad. How sad that people who are not Muslim should be saying to each other, "Oh no, it's Ramadan coming." Because we know as Muslims, Ramadan is the most beautiful time. Little children look forward with big hearts and smiles to Ramadan coming. The mothers in the household, they get everything ready for us to celebrate. And All Muslims love Ramadan. It is a time for us to come close to Allah. And yet these people who are my friends were saying to one another, oh no. So I listened. I listened to the conversation. Yeah, one of them said, you know, in Ramadan, people will be even more bad-tempered than usual because they won't be smoking. In Ramadan, the traffic will be even worse than it normally is because everyone will be rushing to get home in time for iftar. You know, in Ramadan, nothing will be open on time because everyone will be staying up late and they'll be too tired to go to work on time. And I thought, what a shame. Is this the example? Is this the example we're giving to people? And it's very important, brother, as you say, we're called to one another as Muslims to be the nation of the highest morals, the best morals. Our beloved Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was the best of men. The best of men. And I really believe that, you know, it's easy sometimes as Muslims for us to point fingers and say, why don't they do that? And why are they behaving that way? Forget look at my hand. One finger is pointing at someone else, and 3 fingers are pointing back at me. Whenever we accuse someone of something, 3 fingers are pointing back, saying, what about you? You know, so as Muslims, we ought to ask that very question that you're asking, Ahmed, you know. Not what are they doing? Why doesn't someone do something about it? But what am I doing? Is my example, is my way of life, that my morality, is it so noble that people would point to Muslims in the street and say, look, there's a Muslim? Or will they say, Muslims? You understand? Is there any difference between a Muslim country and a non-Muslim country? Do people in the world look and say, wow, that country is fantastic? That country is leading the world by example. In that country, the people are so good. There's no poverty there because the people care for one another. There's no corruption there because the people are honest and are led by the light of Islam. There's no tyranny there. There's no injustice. Can we say that in Muslim countries? No, I'm going to let the viewers answer that. I'm not going to give you the answer. They can answer that themselves, but I think the answer is quite obvious.
Okay, sure. Depends on what you're looking for. For example, you'll find a lot of organization in a non-Muslim country. Really, you'll find a lot of the ideals of Islam in a non-Muslim country. You'll find organization, you'll find a very serious people who, when they set out to do something, you know, most of them, they're very serious. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that if you're going to do something, you know, if you've put it in your mind to do something, make sure that you do it perfectly and with the best of your effort. And this is a saying of the Prophet ﷺ. We have non-Muslims that work 12, 13, 14 hours a day because they have a vision in their mind that they want to do this. They're very organized. They're very serious about this goal. Now, sometimes they go a little too far. This is my opinion. And this is a whole other subject which we don't have time to get into. But the point is that they're very serious people and that when they set out to do something, you know, they do it. And they don't, if something goes wrong, you know, okay, whatever, we'll try to find a way around that. And, you know, so you have this sort of thing. You'll see that the governments really care for the people in a lot of ways. For example, the healthcare industry of a lot of Western countries, not all of them, is very organized. And, you know, you go into the hospital, it's very clean. People are very professional. They make sure that nobody's going to have any problems, any infections from what they did. And if you do get an infection from them, then you can sue them. You know, you can get money from them, you know, and this as a punishment for them. So you have this sort of Islamic ideal.
There's a very famous saying, I don't know who said this saying, but there's a saying somewhere in the back of my mind, that someone said, I visited the countries of the West and I found Islam but no Muslims.
Right, right.
And I came and visited the land of Islam, and I saw Muslims and no Islam.
That was Muhammad Abduh.
There we are.
Yeah.
There we are. Well, he said, we're not saying whether it's true. I think it's too easy to put things into slogans like that.
Right.
But it's certainly true that in many of the countries you're asking about, Ahmed, people are on time.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
They're very professional in what they do. They're courteous to one another. They queue up. You know, when I go to the post office, I get very frustrated because no one's queuing up. Sometimes people say, and you made a mistake as well. If I can correct you on your mistake, when talking about a Muslim country, you said Arab countries. Well, let's be clear, viewers, dear viewers, 18% of the world's Muslims are Arab. Now, I intend no slight to any Arabs here. I love the Arab, that's why I live here. But only 18%, 18% are Arabs. There are more Muslims live in Indonesia than all the Arab countries put together. So we mustn't confuse Arab and Muslim. In the Arab countries there are good Muslims, and we look to the Arab world with reverence and honor and respect, but there are good Muslims elsewhere as well. Malaysia, for example, is the most beautiful country, and the Muslims there are very clean and polite and hard-working and professional, and they're smiling. You know, sometimes I often think that we're missing this smile. As Muslims, we should be the happiest men and women on earth. We've been given Islam as our religion. Allah Almighty has perfected our religion with Islam.
Alhamdulillah.
People should say, look, they are Muslim, they're so happy. There's no place for misery in Islam.
No anxiety, no worry, they're just taking it easy.
Allah is in control.
MashaAllah. Well, I think we're going to take a short break now, inshallah. And when we come back, we'll have a very special guest. His name is Muhammad Hashim. He's lived in Australia most of his life, but he's recently moved to Egypt, and he's doing some work with Islam Online, the English portion of that. And we will have a nice chat with him when we get back, inshallah ta'ala. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
The true life of the Muslim starts at death. If you wish to enhance your knowledge of the Islamic perspective on the hereafter, this life doesn't go on forever, but we do so little to prepare for it because most of us don't know what happens after this life ends. If you want to be amongst those who know, then join us every Saturday at 1930 GMT for the inevitable journey.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to our show, Let's Talk. I'm here with Brother Idris Tawfiq. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
And I'm here with our very special guest, Muhammad Hashim. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi.
Brother Muhammad, he's been in Egypt for 9 months. He was raised in Australia. Alhamdulillah, he's working with Islam Online, which is a very beautiful Islamic English website. And if you've never been there, you should definitely check it out. So we have some questions for you today, and I hope that we'll have a nice, wonderful conversation, inshallah. So how long have you been in Egypt? 9 months, right?
Yep. Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you for inviting me on the show. I'm really privileged to be here. I've been in Egypt for 9 months, and subhanAllah, I started working for Islam Online without actually applying for it a month after coming here. So it's been 8 months in Islam Online and 9 months in Egypt, and that's been, again, a real privilege for me, but also a culture shock all at once because I had to acclimatize living here and working at the same time. I didn't intend to live here straight away. I intended to come here and have a look at the country and see if I would like it. And all of a sudden I found myself in a bus every morning going to work and a bus on the way home and dealing with people and alhamdulillah, they're all Muslims, and it's the first time I've actually worked in an Islamic company with all Muslims, and that's been a real, it's been great. It's been a real challenge at times because there's a lot of cultural differences that I was not aware of. But at the same time,
like what, for example?
I guess I had to fizzle between Egypt's culture and Islamic culture. The Islamic community that I dealt with in Australia was a very close-knit community. It was a Lebanese community, and they had a certain way of thinking.
Can I interrupt? How many Muslims are there in Australia?
There's about, it's less than 1 million.
Out of?
Out of 24 million.
I see.
Yeah. The majority of Muslims in Australia are Lebanese. Or I would say better to say this, that
the majority of people that actually have a voice, an Islamic voice in Australia, are Lebanese. There's Malaysians and Indonesians and all sorts of, southeastern.
And do they live in particular areas, or they're widely spread over the whole country?
Where I'm from in Melbourne, they're in a small area.
Melbourne is where?
Melbourne is the south of Australia.
Okay.
So it's,
south of Australia.
South
okay.
of Australia.
Ah.
Yeah. So I was I had their kind of mentality, their kind of way of speaking and dealing. When I came to Egypt, it was a bit more relaxed.
Now pause again. You are Egyptian, yes?
I was born in Egypt, yes. I am Egyptian originally.
So when did you leave Egypt?
I left Egypt when I was 3 years old.
Okay.
A long time ago.
Okay. And you've lived in Australia all your life?
Yep. So pretty much the last 25 years.
Okay, so you lived all your life as a Muslim in Australia?
Alhamdulillah, yes.
Okay, so what was the shock when you came?
I lived as a Muslim in Australia, however, I did go to a Catholic school.
Okay.
Primary school, I went through a Catholic school, and then high school, I went through a Catholic school. So I was brought up in a not a very conventional Islamic family. It wasn't your strict Islamic family. The only Islam I did know was through the Lebanese community, and they had, like I said, a certain mentality, a certain criteria, a certain formula to be a Muslim. It's very strict, pretty much, very strict way of living. So when I came here, I was a bit tense and a bit strict, and I found it's not really the way to be here. When I went into Islam Online, I said, well, okay, it's Islam Online also, so it has to be very strict. So I went in there with a very strict approach, and I found it's not really the way to take things here. You don't have to necessarily be that formal all the time. So that's probably something.
Can I come in again? Because the viewers may be a little bit confused about this word strict you're coming up with. They might think you're suggesting there's some sort of laxity about being Muslim, or people aren't living properly as Muslims. That's not what you're suggesting, is it?
No, not at all, not at all. I mean, I came from a community that if you were wearing jeans and you didn't have a beard, you were not a Muslim. So if you came into a room and you said Assalamu alaikum and people turned around and they saw you with a shirt and jeans and you looked like a Westerner, per se, a Westerner, then you're not a Muslim.
Okay.
I had that many times.
Whereas here?
Over there.
No, but here, what's your experience?
No, here it's cool, it's casual. It's you're a Muslim, alhamdulillah. Your personality will shine firstly, and then people will people give you a chance to be yourself first, and it's okay to be a certain thing and also be a Muslim. But again, where I'm coming from, there, you have to be a certain look, a superficial kind of look, and a certain outlet to be a Muslim.
Okay, well again, let's just pause in what we're saying, because for some people the way they look is very, very important.
Yeah, of course.
So we mustn't dismiss people's strongly held views. That's very important to them.
Of course,
What I think the viewers, the brothers and sisters, and the audience can ask later on, what I think we're looking for is, in the program today, is there something specific about a Muslim country, or a majority Muslim country, not just it's full of Muslims, but is there something that we can say, wow, I want to live there because of... What would you say to that?
The number one thing for me, alhamdulillah, of course, is being able to say Assalamu alaikum more than one time a day.
MashaAllah.
When I lived in Australia, over the last 3 years, I was working in companies and in journalism the last couple of years, and I didn't say Assalamu alaikum at all day. And the only time I did say Assalamu alaikum when I was praying by myself, and I would say Assalamu alaikum at the end of the prayer.
MashaAllah.
Being able to say Assalamu alaikum that many times in a day, especially at Islam Online, is great for me.
You see, again, you see, that I think this is very true. As Muslims, we take for granted many of the blessings that Allah gives us. And as Muslims living in the land of Islam, we take for granted things like the adhan sounding 5 times a day.
That's what I was going to mention.
The most beautiful sound on earth. And sometimes, we take it for granted. I'd never thought what you said, brother. But we take for granted that we can say quite freely, Assalamu alaikum. We go into a shop, Assalamu alaikum to whoever's there. So that's very beautiful to hear. Because there will be non-Muslims watching this show, inshaAllah. In fact, that's what we want. We want Muslims and non-Muslims, ordinary Muslims, to watch the program. So anything else that you'd say is a positive?
Another great positive, which probably a lot of people wouldn't have picked up on, is the hopping in the taxis and When I came here, it was a bit cold, but then it was still a bit sunny, so I put the shade down in the car, and La Tensa Zikr Allah, you know, is something that you always see around. And that's something also which is it just makes you happy. And I tell it to people here, and they're like, oh yeah, that's everywhere. But I mean, coming from a land where if you pray in front of non-Muslims, they look at you in a strange way. What are you doing? Why are you kneeling down for? And coming here and seeing all these little things just makes you just continuously happy all the time.
So you were here during Ramadan?
Yes, alhamdulillah. It was
so
the first time.
Yeah, what was your experience for an Egyptian Ramadan?
It was brilliant. The lights and the excitement in the air and
hearing Quran.
Hearing Quran all the time.
All the time, yeah,
at the end of Ramadan, when people didn't pray Taraweeh in the evening, I was shocked because I was so used to it. For those 4 weeks, I was used to after Maghrib prayer, everyone would go down and pray. When at the end of the Ramadan, I was very sad to see all the mosques kind of, no more lights and
that's the way it should be. We should be so sad when
I was very sad, and it was just like the end of something. And why aren't these mosques on anymore? What's happened?
You see, we think especially of our brothers and sisters in Switzerland, who only recently they've been prevented from building any more minarets on their mosques.
Yeah.
Of course, in most countries in the West. By the way, do you call Australia the West?
I would call Australia the West.
Even though it's in the East? You'd call it the West?
I would call it the West, yeah.
So the West is kind of a mentality rather than a geography.
Yeah. Certainly.
But the point that our brothers and sisters in Switzerland, they can't listen to the Adhan.
Yeah.
And we can. So it's a very, very beautiful thing.
It is.
What about, tell us, brother, this is your experience of living here, which is a good one.
Yes,
Alhamdulillah, it's a good one. You
enjoy
living
great
here.
Experience.
Alhamdulillah, that's good to hear. But what about any non-Muslims you've experienced, you've met, living in Egypt? What do you think that... Because we look at things through a Muslim lens.
Of course.
Insha'Allah. We see all things coming from Allah, and everything is a blessing from Allah. People whose lives haven't been touched by the beauty of Islam, what about them? What's your experience of non-Muslims living here? What do they see, do you think?
The first thing, again, it's a very, very positive thing. I've had a lot of non-Muslim friends, foreigners, of course, who come for work or whatever other reason, travel. And the first thing they notice is the fact that men are carrying babies and women who are wearing niqab are driving, and, this whole feminism thing that, or what the West says about Islam is the woman is oppressed and all that. They come here and they don't see that. And they're surprised and they look and they're like, oh my God, the woman's driving, the man's holding the baby. How come?
It's not even uncommon to see a woman wearing niqab on a motorcycle.
Well, there you go.
You'll see it.
And that's something that really kind of, triggers many questions for them. It's like, how come? How can we think that by putting that on or by being a Muslim woman, there's certain things that you can't do and certain arenas you can't step into, and there's no-go zones or whatever you want to call it. But they come here and they see all that.
What about negative? What about negative things they might see?
Oh, well, there's certain things like, they look at women can't necessarily play sport if they're wearing a niqab or stuff like that. There's certain limitations that people that come from the West necessarily are used to. Not used to. And they come here and they see people that are limited to do certain things. And they said, why? Why can't I go into a bar and listen to music and not drink alcohol? Or why can't I go to a cafe where they're serving alcohol and not drink and just sit there? And there's certain things that, kind of...
And what would we say to them? What would our response be?
Oh, well, there's certain things. Well, not all Muslims adhere to that. Some Muslims do sit in certain cafes where they're...
No, but what would be our response as good Muslims? How would we say to these people in the West?
Well, you turn around and say about, encouraging. We as Islam is for humanity, of course. So by sitting with people who are consuming alcohol, who are, doing that, you're pretty much saying that it's okay. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. Go ahead. I'm not going to join you because I'm a Muslim. However, by me sitting here not objecting to it, well, I'm saying that it's okay, and that's not what we're here for. We're not here just for our Muslim brothers. We're here also, provide a certain, convey this message, and it's not just for Muslims alone.
There's a question that we were asking before, and that came out of the comments of the audience of the street. Is there such a thing as a Muslim country?
I don't think there's a Muslim country per se, as in, what is a Muslim country? Brother Idris mentioned something very important about the fact that a a lot of people have the perception that Muslim means Arab, Arab means Middle East, and Middle East means Muslim, and we clarified that. But going back to the Muslim country, I think Muslim country, the first thing is the majority of Muslims live in the country. But I mean the practice of people, is it Islamic? You know, we live in a Muslim country. It's taken me 9 months to realize that yes, Egypt is a Muslim country. When I first came here, I criticized many things. I said, that's not Islamic, that's too relaxed, that's not. But when you look at the core, when you take it all the way down, there are certain things that make you say, Alhamdulillah, that I am in a Muslim country. It's a bit difficult to kind of, not everything is Islamic. However, there is a certain comfortability that I feel here, and I engage that comfortability, and I say that comfortability is because it is a Muslim country.
MashaAllah. See, I found this, I don't know about you, the moment I came to what we call the land of Islam, I felt comfortable. I just felt at home.
Yeah.
And you know, all those things, I do have foreign friends and they criticize, well, he does this and she does this and they do that. Maybe I'm a very simple man or I'm a bit blind, but I see goodness here in the street. You know, poor people teach me more about Islam than any book I could take off the shelf. You know, an old man whose head is bruised with prayer because he's been praying all his life and begging Allah Almighty for his wife and kids. He teaches me more about what it is to be a good Muslim than all the television programs, you know, and all the speeches.
There's certain things that happen. You might have a bad day, or you wake up and your car's not going to start, and you hop in a taxi and all of a sudden the man says, relax, you know, Salli ala Nabi, and you hear that, alayhi salatu salam, and that's all you need. And that's all you need, and that to me is what a Muslim country is. You know, forget about all the superficial kind of things that people think a Muslim country is. But I mean, certain things that we get taught from ordinary people, everyday people, is what it means for me to be in a Muslim country, and for me to say Alhamdulillah that I am in a Muslim country.
I think one thing, when I first came to Egypt, was I was looking for things that reminded me of Islam. You know, this is what I was expecting to see, to always be reminded of Islam, while in fact I saw so many things that reminded me of non-Muslim countries. And so it was hard at first to kind of realize where are the things that are going to remind me of my deen. And I have a very small, beautiful story that will tell you how I came to rectify this and find peace. I was just shopping in a mall with a friend of mine, and suddenly we realized it was time for Asr prayer. And so I said, where are we going to go? Because, you know, in America, if you're in a mall, you know, maybe you can pray in a dressing room if you're lucky, you know. And suddenly I looked up and I saw this sign. And it said, you know, it was directing you to the bathroom, and then another sign, and it had a picture of a mosque. And we went back there to pray, and we made wudu and everything, and we're praying. And I noticed that the boss of a store, the manager, is praying next to his subordinates, shoulder to shoulder, you know. And the janitor is praying next to the owner of the mall. You know, they're all praying together. And then I felt peace. I said, now I'm reminded of Islam. And from that day, I never had a problem. Do you have any experience like that?
I was on a bus about 6 months ago, and people were paying their ticket and stuff. And one of the men that comes and checks the tickets are about £1 or 75 piastres. You know, he comes and checks that everyone has bought a ticket, and he said, make sure everyone's paid for their ticket. I'm not gonna ask, but you know, your hisab is under Rabbena. And he just hopped off, and you know, it's just little reminders that. There's a man who just hops on the bus. He's reminding us, continuously reminding us, and that's what everything we do in Islam, whether it's prayer or we're constantly trying to remind ourselves, because we as human beings we tend to forget. So there's little triggers, there's little reminders that come from all sorts of people, all sorts of.
There's one thing as well, I think, very important when we're talking about Muslim countries. We should never forget that as Muslims we are one nation, and this concept of countries. You know, is overplayed, really. We talk about the Arab world. Many of these countries were created by the British and the French by drawing a line in the sand. And our problems began when we lived in the Ottoman Empire. We lived as Muslims. We were all Muslims together, one nation. And our problems began when we played into the hands of these people who weren't Muslim, and you know, who were inviting people with looking for thrones to sit on, and readily giving them and creating these countries. we should never forget that we're one nation and the best nation.
Alhamdulillah. Well, I think we're running out of time for this segment, so we're going to go to a short break, inshallah, and we will come back and we will have some questions from our audience and answer some emails, inshallah ta'ala. So don't go away. The show's not over yet. We have our best part coming up, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
So this is an open invitation for everybody to recognize God and enjoy His blessings in this life and His mercy in this life and in the hereafter as well. Allah, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Each name has a meaning. Each name signifies a nature of Allah the Almighty which no one shares or is compared to Allah in it.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to our show, to our final segment of our show, Let's Talk. And I have with me, of course, Brother Idris, as always. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
And we have our very special guest, Brother Muhammad Hashim. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
We have time to take a brief question from our audience, inshallah, and then we'll go straight to our emails after that to close out the show. So does anyone in our audience have a question for our brother? Yes. Go ahead, brother.
You're welcome, Mr. Muhammad.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask you one question. Many people here in the Arab region are thinking that the civilization of the West is the ideal one. Okay. So you have a product experience, a double experience to live here in Cairo and to live there in Australia. So how can you see that image? Is it true or not?
It's an excellent question. Since I've been here, people tell me, why did you come back? Why don't you stay in Australia? You have a citizenship, you're Australian. What are you doing here, especially working here? Because there are some difficulties in working here and doing certain things here. Talk about civilization, define civilization. I've spoken to many philosophers, people that study sociology here. They define success of a civilization by monetary gain, by how much the country, the economy. The economy is good, they're civilized. I disagree with that. I see us as Muslims here in Egypt very civilized. For a woman to get married, there are certain things she needs to do. There are certain responsibilities the man has to do before he is able to get married, before he's able to have sex also. In the West, civilization in terms of relationships, I don't believe they're as civilized as a Muslim nation. There is a lot of sex without responsibility. That causes problems. That causes women to have, children and they're not married and there's no one to look after them, etc. So there's so many things that we can define as not being civilized. But I mean, as an economy, there's a reason why the West is more civilized in terms of their advancement in economy. As opposed to here, there's a difference. But when I look at civilization, I look at how people treat each other, and do people actually really love each other there, or are they just doing? Are they organised and they're doing the right thing just for that monetary gain, just for the money, the money side of success? I think we are civilized. I think we can't see it because we equate success with civilization, success with the economy. So I think if we can separate economic success with how we live, as the rules that we have, the laws that we have, before entering someone's house, what we do. If there's a lady in the house, what should we say or what should we do? There's certain things that I'm comfortable with here. In Australia, there were certain things that I did that were deemed backwards. If I entered a house and there was a woman, I would not want to enter. And I said, come in. I said, I don't want to come in, or unless there's a man there, unless, and there's certain things that they couldn't see. So I used to get really annoyed. I don't look at that as being civilized, because that causes, long-term problems down the track. I think in Egypt, it's nice, because you knock on the door, you make sure there's a mahram there. There's certain rules, and these rules are what I consider civilization.
So in effect, it's civilization is in terms of relations between human beings, but maybe we have some issues to work out in terms of
there are
finances
issues.
And
there are a lot of issues when it comes to all of that.
I think that's a very good point. Well, very briefly, I would like to go into our email section, inshallah. Brother Idris, we have an email for you from Brother Ahmed from London, and he asks, I don't know if you'll have a program about Palestine, but I hope you'll be able to discuss this. Can you make a comment now about what's going on in Gaza? Just very briefly, because we have like 1 or 2 minutes.
1 or 2 minutes to talk about Palestine. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Well, in answer to Ahmed's question, we will have a whole program about Palestine.
Alhamdulillah.
And a comment to all of our brothers and sisters watching on the television, to our studio audience, while we're sitting here comfortably on sofas and chairs, with lighting in this beautiful studio, and people at home sitting watching their TVs, our brothers and sisters in Palestine are tunneling like rats under the ground looking for food and drink. That's what I have to say. And as Muslims, alhamdulillah, these people are our brothers and sisters. So as Muslims, we are called upon through every means. We've been talking today about one Muslim nation. These are our brothers and sisters. And by every means, by writing, by sending aid, by beseeching Allah Almighty, we pray for the blessed land of Palestine, the occupied mosque of Al-Aqsa, and the precincts which He did bless. And we ask Allah Almighty, we beg Allah Almighty to bless our brothers and sisters in Palestine. And inshaAllah, we can have a good program in the future. And by the way, we forgot to mention, I think, that these emails must be sent to talk@huda.tv. Talk@huda.tv. And you can ask us questions, you can suggest what we talk about, you can ask to come and take part in the studio audience if you live near us. It's your show. Let's Talk is for you, brothers and sisters.
And you can leave us comments as well, and hopefully you'll tell us we're doing a good job, inshallah, and hopefully we are doing a good job. Well, that's all the time that we have for you today, and we're very glad that our studio audience could be with us. We thank Brother Muhammad Hashim for being with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
And we had a great time, and we hope that you enjoyed watching it, and we really hope to see you next time, inshallah ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but do not ever quit. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear